when you need me to start. Jamie, are you going to bring the attendees in?
Yep, so the attendees can now view the meeting, and I'm looking at the list to see who is in there that needs to be promoted to a panelist. So I've promoted Chris and Greg Fadamatori.
So we're ready to roll?
Is 4 members your quorum? I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Not yet. We don't have a quorum yet.
So is 5 your quorum?
I didn't know that for sure. I thought so.
Not in the attendance yet.
1, 2, 3, 4. MJ is still trying to get in, so we might as well open the meeting, and if we have anything to vote on, MJ may be in by then. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with the state open meeting law pursuant to section 20 of chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. Additionally, all votes taken by the Affordable Housing Trust during this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. Motion to open the meeting. Actually, we don't need a motion to open the meeting. So I'm going to bring the call to order. I am Mike Lester, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. This is the meeting, July 18th, 2022 meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust. We'll go around the room. Next, Deanna.
Yep, this is Deanna Fay.
Next, Joe.
Joe Bertolino's here.
Chris.
Chris McCarthy here.
Staff.
Oops, sorry, my camera's not working. I'll fix that shortly. Greg Fadamatori, Planning Director, and just to clarify, 4 members constitutes a quorum, so you're set to conduct your business.
Okay.
And I'll fix my camera.
Thank you, Greg. This is Jamie Corliss, City of Gloucester Grants Administrator.
Okay. So it looks like we have Bill Wheat on with us, and the next agenda item is a project review for Mr. Wheat. So with that,
Yeah, my name's Bill Wheat. Yeah, so I basically just wanted to, thanks for having me on this meeting. Wanted to just kind of introduce, a project that we've been working on for a little while. Looking to, I live here in Rockport. I've got a mixed-use commercial property over at 50 Maplewood Avenue in Gloucester. And behind this property that I own this land. The address is 50R Maplewood Avenue. It's just north of 1 acre. And so that's the property that, I'm looking to, ideally build affordable housing. It's a long, narrow lot. And so my building hence is kind of, long and narrow. I'm looking to put 30 units on this parcel. It's going to be a 2-story building, mostly studios. is gonna have 33 parking spots. And yeah, that's kind of first floor, second floor. The building actually, as you can see, comes in like 3 different sections with their staircases connecting the buildings. So it's kind of, it's kind of motel stylish where your front door is actually an exterior door. If that makes sense. So on the ground floor it'd be 16 units, on the second floor it'd be 14 units. You can park right in front of your apartment, which is convenient. You get the groceries, not that many steps from your front door. So I'm kind of catering to, that an older crowd, also a younger crowd. And if you go a little bit further down to the next page, there's some like renderings. Basically, so again, it's 3 buildings, different shades of gray, offset with white. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking to do. And so,
Bill, what do,
we're going to be working with the city. Right now, it's zoned for extensive business. And we've got an approved Pell, and we're going to be in the process of communicating this design here shortly with the city, and getting their thoughts. And
where do you pick up frontage for this?
So frontage would be off of Whistle Stop Way. Also with the 40B process, that can be a waiver issue. Kind of like a la like height. And so that's kind of a snapshot of my project.
Bill, Chris McCarthy, do you have to get a zoning change to a neighborhood business for that? It's extensive business.
Yeah, so extensive business doesn't allow for any kind of residential use.
Hmm.
So, this is right next to MBTA parking lot.
Yeah, it should.
And the state's trying to promote a lot of this transit-oriented development.
Sure.
It's close proximity, walking distance to the grocery store. You're right downtown. The mill building is, you can see it right across the street.
Oh, it's definitely is needed, the housing needed down there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, right now that lot is just a lot, quite honestly, right now, and it has been for the last 5 years since I've owned that 50 Maplewood. It's kind of a lot where if you basically wanted to get rid of a TV, you go back there, drop it off. It's, yeah. So I think this would be a good use for the land.
Bill, Mike Luster again. This is historically a very wet area too. How is this parcel compared to the surrounding parcel on Maplewood Avenue that typically takes on significant water?
Yeah, so the construction of this building is going to be on helical piles or a piling system. The building that I own, 50 Maplewoods, basically built on timber piles, and I believe the 7-Eleven's the same way. This is a little bit different. This would be helical piles. Obviously, I'm working with a civil engineer. We've got to have a proper drainage plan, which we
Yeah.
believe we do have, and so, yeah. I mean, that's definitely something that we've got to address.
Bill,
Now, Bill, quick question,
Yeah.
and pardon my ignorance if I didn't hear this in the beginning. This is the rental units, correct?
Yeah, so my plan is long-term rental. Yeah.
Okay, and then so on each floor, the end caps are 3-bedroom units, which I'm gonna imagine are gonna cater to a younger family crowd. And then all the interior units are studio, which again, probably is the elderly demographic that you mentioned. Affordability, so you said it was a 40B?
Right.
Is that part, again, is that 60 or 80% AMI? What are the qualifications?
So you have to have 25% of your building at 80%. It's kind of one of the guidelines. You got to have 10% of your building being 3-bedroom units.
Okay,
I just know from the building that I have on 50 Maplewood Avenue, I've got kind of like 4 1-bedroom studios, and there's just such a huge demand. I mean, I don't have very many vacancies, but when I do, I get 60 inquiries a day. So I mean, the demand's there.
Did someone else have a question, MJ or Deanna?
yeah, Bill, can you just talk a little bit about the construction part of it? So these are like modular prefab style construction?
Yeah. So my plan is I'm going to go through a modular company, RCM. They're out of Canada, and so they come down. They're a huge company, and they put the modulars in place with their own crane and their crew, and then it's up to my team to finish off the units, both exteriorly and internally.
And they can only do the 2 levels, or you
No,
probably,
they build big hotels, so they could go as high as you really need to.
but you're planning on just the 2 levels because that's probably just an economic
Right.
factor. I think that aside from thinking of the studios as being great for seniors, it's also excellent workforce housing. And given the location of this project, it has a lot of potential to benefit a lot of people. I think also given the location of the project, it's not a high rent district necessarily, so I think that, the location also sort of drives it as being an added affordable opportunity. So even though not all of the units would be deed restricted, overall, it would be likely a really affordable workforce housing.
Wait a minute, deed restricted? I thought these were rentals.
Well, it's going to be a 40B, right? So you'll have a
Yeah,
certain
so
amount.
it
that
has
is
to
deed
be
restricted.
it has to be deed restricted for the life of the property.
Oh,
But yeah, like in my current building, I've got 4
deed
units.
restricted usually refers to ownership.
No.
Sorry.
No, rentals can
You're
also
out.
be
You're out.
restricted. They're income qualifying rentals, so they would just have to go through a different process. They have to be, annually income verified. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you
Mary
gotta go
John,
through-
it's referring to the deed of the property. So it'll be a restriction on the property.
The whole 16 unit property?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I misunderstood. I thought you were just referring to individual units.
No.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of the meeting. Also, Mike or anybody, do you happen to know, we've never, I didn't hear what Mr. Wheat was requesting for by way of funding, but we've never funded, projects that were mixed market rate, a 40B type project, which if you're going to, skip through the process, that's the sort of the price tag is you have to put in, those affordable units and all that. We haven't had one of these before. Does anybody know if we have any, if there's any impediment to our funding that?
I don't think there's a particular problem with supporting a project with affordability, but I think you've pointed out there, I don't think there's been a situation where there's been a project that was supported that wasn't 100% affordable.
Thank you, Greg. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yep.
But I don't think is there anything in the rules or bylaws that say we can't fund something that's not 100%?
Well, that was my question.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer, and so
I don't
I
think
would
there
like to
is.
know the answer to that. Well, yeah, but I don't want to.
Mhm.
I don't want to make a commitment on a. I think I'd like to make it on. We know.
Mhm.
And if I understand this right, Bill's just initiating this process now. And so he's got some work to do with the city to
Yeah,
start.
this is just kind of an intro call.
Right.
Obviously.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there's been no
This is just-
application at this point.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, great
yeah,
then.
yeah,
Yeah, we've got
this
time
is-
to look into it.
Yeah, I've got the cart way ahead of the horse here.
This is in, informational, and
Very good. Thank you.
I think he may have, Bill, you may have contacted us about 18 months ago about this project as well. I believe, I remember it
Yep.
before.
Right. So I went through the application with Mass Housing and got a approved Pell. And then, I was communicating with Greg in the city and working with the city on a different kind of plan and that's kind of been put on hold. So kind of moving forward with this avenue and but yeah, we're going to be working with Greg in the city and talking to them shortly.
Are you gonna need anything in front of the Board of Appeals, do you know, from a square foot per unit? Are you able to fit on the lot where you're trying to put, or are you gonna have to go in front of Board of Appeals, or that'll just be part of the 40B process?
So Chris, you're talking about like the amount of units?
Yeah, units per square foot and any other relief because of the affordability. I'm just wondering if you'll need to still go in front of the Board of Appeals to bring.
Yeah, so Chris, they haven't presented their application yet, but I would suspect that there's a number of waivers that they'll request.
Okay, cool.
And additionally, it's currently zoned as a commercial district, so
Yeah.
there'll have to be some sort of parity with looking probably at the R5 district for dimensional requirements.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, it sounds like we definitely need housing down there for sure.
In addition to the drainage issues of that area, have you done preliminary research on the environmental concerns and
Yeah, so it's not in the wetlands area. That's on the other side of Whistle Stop Way. There is like 100-foot buffer zone. So, we have to go through conservation.
How about any phase 1 environmental been done at this point, or?
Yeah, we did a phase 1 and phase 2
Okay.
when I bought the property a couple of years ago.
And I think I may have missed the part when MJ brought that up. I think I completely missed the percentage of, if I thought it was 100% affordable. Can you just go over that again?
Well, so really, yeah, I mean, technically the whole project is 100% affordable. I mean, my market rates are going to be below what's affordable. If you look at the affordable rents in the town that we live in, studio, like for example, I think the 3 bedrooms are $2,900 at 80% AMI. So, I mean, my units are going to be much cheaper than that. So, I mean,
Do you have an idea? Sorry to interrupt. Do you have an idea of what those, again, I know this is a far-looking question, but do you have an idea what those market rents will be? Guesstimate?
Yeah, I mean, I think the studios are going to be somewhere around, in the 1,400 range.
Wow.
Right now, like the affordable housing, like for example, Halyards is 1,850 right now a month. The affordable rents at 80% are at 1,829, something like that. So, I mean, my market rates are considerably lower than what's deemed, 80% AMI. The negative about going 100% affordable is, you have to hire a monitoring company, and that's an expense. And what I'm trying to do is build safe, clean units. And in today's market, with construction costs, with finance charges going up, I got to make this thing pencil out. Right now it's zoned, my other plan was, all right, I could go with storage units. But I think there's a bigger need right now for apartments than storage units.
Bill?
Yeah.
So, I mean, speaking for myself, I would really like to see rents more around the 60% AMI range. Is that something that you would consider?
Well, what's the percentage of the building that you want at 50% AMI?
Yeah, I think we want to maximize. I think for the Affordable Housing Trust support, I think we would have to maximize the affordability as much as we can.
So you're talking about 100% of the building?
Even if your required amount with 40B is at 60% or less.
So the required amount for 40B at the 50% AMI is 20%, which would be 6 units in this particular case.
And then the rest would be still below market.
Would be market, right? So I mean, that's something that I, I'm open to suggestions here. I'm not set in one particular way. I've been flexible with basically my design from the get-go. So I'm open to different ideas. That's one of the reasons why I'm interested in talking to you guys, is to just get your input, and then obviously we're gonna be talking to the city very soon, getting their input and seeing what we can do to make something happen.
I would definitely like to see the affordability part of it maximized.
Well, that's actually part of our mission.
Right.
Right.
So in your talks with the city and going through the process of what you need to accomplish for the 40B permitting, I think that's something that should be really looked at.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely open to going, the 50% AMI. There's just, no way I could do it for the whole building. It wouldn't pencil out. There's just no way.
There are developers that do it. I'm not suggesting, what you should do with your time and your resources, Bill, but there are ways to do it. Deanna's worked for Harbor Light Community Partners. Is that right? Do I have that right?
Yes.
And they do projects like this where they're all affordable, and somehow they make it work through partnering with funding agencies. And well, she could explain it, I'm sure, much more. accurately than
Yeah, I
I.
mean, one of the ways that they do it is they go through tax credits.
Yeah.
And, yeah, they're a big organization, just like the YMCA. Most of their funding is through tax credits. And, you know, so me being a small developer, I don't really fit in those little, that little niche. So I've got to get some local funding either through Affordable Housing Trust or somewhere else to make this happen. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't go that route.
Have you spoken to CPC as well?
Not yet. No.
So a couple of things. What is the dimensions on the lot that you have
It's
approximately?
yeah. So the width is 88 feet, and the length is somewhere around like 360, 370, give or take.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Did,
it's just a smidge over an acre.
and what are the size of the way that you had that I didn't look close enough, but the way that you have the units situated, what's the square footage on each one of those? Not
The-
not including the stairways, not including the balcony.
Yeah. So the studios are at 420 square feet. The 3-bedroom units are, I believe, 1260.
Now, what are the dimensions of the studio units?
14 by 30.
14 by 30. Gotcha. Okay. Okay, that's why you have to. I was just trying to see if you could actually have them all on one floor, but the width of the lot sort of doesn't allow you to do that. Okay. Yeah, that'd be 60 feet. You really couldn't put everything on one floor. You have to have the 2 floors. I got it. Okay. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Wheat? At this point?
I'd say just keep us posted on your progress.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
do.
Please do.
I mean, our goal is to create housing that's affordable here in the city. So we want to support it if it's going to be a viable project.
Yeah, hopefully we can make something happen here.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Bill.
All right, well, thank you.
All right,
right.
next up on the agenda is Deanna with the ARPA request.
Yeah. Let me just find my notes here. So we submitted our request for 10% of ARPA funds to be committed to the Affordable Housing Trust. Heather and I sort of worked on the bulk of the proposal and sent that around for input. We got a few comments. Joe provided some data and some good input for us. So I'm hoping everybody was able to review and see the final proposal that was submitted. The way that I understand it is that this is going to be compiled by the listening group, presented to the mayor in some capacity, and a decision will be made from the administration maybe early fall. So they'll be reviewing them over the summer. I feel like there was a lot of overall support from the community speaking up to allocate funds for affordable housing initiatives. So there was definitely a large amount of people speaking up on the cause. I don't know if other housing related organizations like Action or Harbor, I guess Harbor Light's not really a Gloucester organization, but if any nonprofits or other entities that are working in housing had submitted requests for ARPA, I suspect some may have. And as far as I know, we are the only, like the CPC of course can't do it. So we're the only entity working with housing within the city. So yeah, that's that. So we just wait for the results.
Is
If
there a
we-
timeline? Is there a timeline on the results?
No, like I said, my understanding is that they're going to be reviewing them, reviewing, whatever is recommended, by late summer and making a decision early fall.
Oh.
That's the only timeline that I have heard of. There's nothing, no hard dates. And I'm not even sure whether they're still receiving proposals at this point. When I checked, I think just last week, it was still open online.
And once a decision is made late fall, is there a delay in the funding or?
Not clear on that. I'm hoping that the administration can have more transparency on the process too, so people will understand where the money is going to and when it's going to arrive and how it's going to be used. So yeah, and it's and I guess in my opinion and Heather's too, as we were putting this together, was that this is money that will be really, really useful for the trust moving forward, to have basically some seed money for some pretty serious impact on housing.
Thanks, Deanna. Any questions or comments for Deanna?
Just to thank you very much for doing that.
Oh, and thank you.
That's
Thank
great.
you too. Yeah, thank you too for
Glad to help in any way.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, for sure. Thank you to you, Deanna and Heather for working on that for sure. Okay, next up, we have a discussion on strategic action plans. I wasn't at the last meeting and apparently we were to put together some goals for our group. And I'd like to just open it up to whomever would like to start, whether it's Joe, Chris, anybody who would like to talk about the plans, or unless we want to take more time while the other members put stuff together, I'll open it up to anyone. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I think as the guy suggested it in the last meeting, I thought I would actually follow through and do it. I just came up with a couple really closely related goals to start off with, and either talking about rental or home ownership assistance. Jamie had sent this along, so I'm not going to read it verbatim for you guys because you have it. But there's things that we could do. Also, how do we fund the Affordable Housing Trust? I think with some of the previous reading documents that were sent about, CPC funding is popular throughout other affordable housing trusts throughout the state. I do like the idea of those inclusionary zoning, the in lieu payments. My only fear with those are, do we have enough development in the city of Gloucester to support that type of hopeful income? And I'm quite ignorant to the development of Gloucester, so I don't know. I have to kind of depend on the research that I've seen, and it's just, they're not there. The housing permits being issued to develop those type of buildings aren't there. But again, I am open to different sources of information. And then really at the end of it, and I think is the whole idea of what we are, is to promote, preserve, and create affordable housing options, however that may be, whatever that box is. I want to make it. I know it's difficult to say this, but it's as broad as we can. If a family of 6 needs, and they make that terrible sweet spot between 50%, say they make 55% AMI, but they make less than 80, well, they're not going to really qualify for vouchers. I think that's our job to step in and say, hey, what can we do to help? How can we help that person? Or an elderly resident, same idea. Now the way that calculate certain things when it comes to vouchers and affordable housing, Section 8, it can be tough because some elderly person who makes no money or very little money, but has some assets there to protect themselves, those assets get thrown in and now their monthly rent gets jacked up. So another situation where we could step in. And then if it's home ownership, why not do a down payment assistance? Why not work with housing developers to get, if they're building 4 or 5 houses up in Riverdale behind, you know, Reynard Street, why can't we get a house there that's deeded, like MJ was saying, a deed restriction to that unit? But that's enough for me.
Yeah, I think anybody who would submit goals for the foreseeable future for the Affordable Housing Trust would probably all be in agreement that revenue generation is the top of the list, so we can continue to do great things. So that's first and foremost on everyone's list of things to do. So any other comments on that?
Very thoughtful, Joe. Thank you.
And
Thank you, MJ. Thank you so much.
And I don't think the conversation with CPC is over, although they didn't approve us for this round of funding. They gave me a bulleted list of items to that we could start working towards, which we can review at a meeting coming up as well on how to work with CPC in the future. So they didn't shut the door completely, but they gave us some pretty good input on that. So that door is not completely closed. So
Very good.
anything else?
Yeah, thinking about the CPC, I don't see why we couldn't think about some sort of funding program, whether it's a rental assistance or down payment assistance that we would do on some sort of grant cycle and utilize like an ongoing request from CPC for that. If we just drafted up a plan and submitted it and got their feedback on it, it might be something that they would agree to. And at least we know that we can use CPC money to fund one initiative.
Yeah. And I think that's what they wanted, Deanna. They wanted to know our mission, which is clear on the city website. The tactics that we would use to achieve the mission. And then other non-CPC sources of income that we would look to generate. And then talk about how we can work together to appropriate funds. So I think that's one tactic for sure. So.
And I have a question
Okay.
for Greg, if he is listening here, around the short-term rental. So we know that we are taking in somewhere in the vicinity of 50,000 based on the last year's surcharge that was allocated to us. And my question is, how is that program sort of monitored? I suspect that we have a lot of short-term rentals that are not like either registered with the state, so not participating. And so is there some sort of, for lack of a better term, policing around short-term rentals, and so that we can make sure that we're maximizing, you know, the income that we're generating from that to fund the Affordable Housing Trust. If we have a bunch of units that aren't registered, they're not paying the surcharge, so we don't benefit from that. But we don't, I mean, I suspect that there are, but I don't know how that's being monitored or if it's being monitored.
Yeah, I don't know that it's, I don't know what the state is doing in terms of monitoring whether folks are registered or not. It's kind of a, you know, it's a double-edged sword. I know that there's anybody that has a short-term rental, they're obviously enjoying the income stream from it. In some cases, it might be very important to a household just for them to continue to maintain all their, you know, their monthly expenses. So when this kind of came around, when it was going to start to be more regulated and taxed, a lot of communities asked that question: what are we going to do about short-term rentals? You know, the past administration did not, you know, take a position that it was something that should be regulated or banned in any way. I can say from the perspective of the concern around year-round housing and year-round rental stock, you know, some of the things that were done as a part of the housing production plan, like creating the opportunity for accessory dwelling units, they come with a restriction that they have to be greater than 30 days to try to build in that potential for year-round rental. So it's a tough one because I know counselors probably hear lots of complaints about the impacts of short-term rentals, yet we're collecting money. So you can't have it both ways. You can't complain about the use, but accept the money. There have been a number of, kind of almost a cottage industry of folks that will comb the different sites that market short-term rentals and basically try to ensure that they are registered and that they're paying their tax. But it's not something that the city has in any way funded that type of consulting service to monitor it. So it's a good question. Again, it's certainly not something that's being done through zoning enforcement or inspectional services.
I feel like there could be a big miss there. I mean,
Well, what's the big miss is short-term rentals in the first place. What we would, realize in income is a drop in the bucket next to what we're losing in potential housing for this city, stable housing.
right. I think the goal is to make it more challenging for people that want to do short-term rentals, and that would be through enforcing a surcharge or perhaps a moratorium.
Anything else on the strategic action plan? Thank you, Deanna.
So, at our last meeting, Deanna had kind of asked if there was a way to compile what a consultant might possibly do for the committee in terms of strategic planning. And this seems like an opportune time for me to kind of throw out some of the things that I've thought about, to kind of build on Greg's initial research and the couple of emails he sent, giving different, potential suggestions and examples and things like that. I want to say, of course, anything a consultant would do would be guided by your decisions, right? And that's, Mike, you weren't here for that meeting, the last meeting. So part of the conversation about putting the goals out is to kind of guide the next step conversation. So if you hire a consultant, what is it you want to get from that? So, consultants obviously would be driven based on your goals. They would maximize the planning efforts by guiding your discussions and kind of mediating your conversations and your ideas. They would be able to perform all the research and conduct outreach to get input and community input. They'd have the capacity to go through master plans or, the affirmatively furthering fair housing and those kinds of plans that are already in effect in the city. They'd be able to educate all of you and assist in educating the public on the best practices and provide guidance based on their experience. They would be able to help you through the process of determining whether or not your current mission is fine as it is or needs to be revised, what your actual goals are, what your strategies to generate funds or your strategies to reach your goals. Because I think that's what I keep hearing, even from the CPC, is lacking, right? That you have a mission, but how are you going to get there? So to guide that conversation. And another big thing that they would be able to offer is their objectivity, right? So bringing in someone third party means that someone removed from kind of the subjective, biases or the kind of unnecessarily unknown biases we all have as community members or working in the community, and really be able to help you stay process and goal oriented. So those are some of the things that I really wanted to outline for the benefits of bringing a consultant on to do a strategic plan. I really think it would benefit your efforts to generate revenue. I think a lot of, funding sources would look more kindly upon the trust if there was a strategic plan that was outlined goals and approaches and things like that. So that was my homework.
Thank you, Jamie.
Presenting.
Thank you.
I think that was great. I think initially at the last meeting, I thought maybe we could do some brainstorming as a group or a couple of us. But I think clearly we definitely need to, get a consultant to get us focused in the right direction, looking at where we are and where we need to be. So I think whatever the steps are to get a small group together to get a consultant on board, I think that'd be helpful, for sure.
I agree.
Yeah, me too. I
Mhm.
think it would be great with maybe Greg and Jamie's advice or guidance.
Do we have
bring
to make a
I guess we
motion?
may have already
Do we have
done
to make
this.
a motion to push that forward or not?
Well, we don't have a firm proposal. We need a,
Ye-
do we have a budget or something that we would, I mean, all right, somebody make a motion.
Well,
Well,
I just want to say from my initial research, there was one particular firm that seemed like they're going to have availability. There's certain guidelines for when you have to RFP something, which you can do. But for the dollars and cents of the different estimates of really trying to do kind of a quick, and I don't say quick to be,
Quick.
inefficient or not detailed, but really just, you're not looking for a 60-page document. You're looking for, understanding what the opportunities are and a little bit more of a focused strategic plan. That's something that can probably be accomplished for maybe less than $10,000.
If it's less than 10,000, then we would not have to bid. I mean, put it out
You
to
would
bid.
not have to bid. And for consulting services, I mean, I checked with the purchasing department, but for certain consulting and planning services, they are actually exempt from 30B.
Oh.
And I'm not quite sure how the trust falls into that, in terms of what your flexibility might be as well. But I think that's something that could just be contracted. So, I circulated some ideas. We can probably develop a scope with the consultant as well to kind of almost have a menu of options of, hey, we don't want to go that far, but let's start with, kind of a meet and greet and understanding of what might be, and then go from there to a potential contract. I mean, it's entirely up to you if you want to see the realm of possibility out there and put out an RFP process. I think for what you seem to be looking for, that might be a little bit heavy-handed.
I think we want to do
think-
what you're thinking, Greg, which is to just
Okay.
get something going,
Yeah.
get us focused and get us
Okay.
moving right along. So whatever you suggest, getting a small group that have worked on, putting together
Yeah.
something, let's get it going and let's get moving on it, I think.
So
And
how
you have
about
you have
before the
a-
next meeting, I'll have that fleshed out and give you, a scope with some numbers behind it, and then you can go from there.
Sounds good.
That
Great,
sounds
Kate.
great.
Sounds
You have,
great.
did you say, you have a preferred vendor, did you say?
I did do a lot of looking, and in a lot of the examples that I provided, it was a firm that seems to have found a little bit of a niche and really has been supporting affordable housing trusts.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, again, it's not like, when you're dealing with an engineering problem, there's 100 firms out there. I
Yeah.
think this is a little bit more specialized, with a firm that understands the landscape of what trusts are dealing with in
That's
Massachusetts.
what we want.
And if
That's
they've
exactly
they've
what
had
we want.
success, exactly. And if they've had success
That's
with
great.
other
Yep.
similar towns or cities, that'd be
Yep.
great.
Okay.
Excellent.
Greg, is it possible for me to get the account statements for the last 2 months so we can figure out our cash position a little better as well?
I'll just shift that right over to Jamie. I'm not sure. So who manages that? Is that something that you have, Mike?
So I usually, as vice chair, I was also the treasurer of the Affordable Housing Trust, but I haven't gotten a statement in a while. And I want to make sure what we've appropriated to the YMCA.
Is there.
I just want to make sure we have the funds to pay for a consultant.
Yeah, I think just
Makes
based on
perfect
my
sense.
recollection of the funds that were afforded to the Y project were kind of like the last bits of the initial 350.
Correct.
And now with the allocation from the short-term rental
Yep.
fees, you should be in a good position.
Wait, so I just, that's the part I didn't know if that was already allocated or,
I believe that was, so we'll have to make sure that money has moved.
Yeah,
But the commitment of the administration was certainly there to make sure that that happened.
I'm a banker. You can't write checks, though.
So we'll confirm that as well in advance of the next meeting.
Mike,
Can you just tell me what that was? What that amount was?
I want to say it was a little over $50,000, maybe like 53, but I don't have the number on hand.
Mike, is your camera going up or your chair going down?
Both.
Okay, okay. I was wondering, oh, there, big head. Okay, that looks good there. Okay,
So,
I was just checking.
okay. With that, we'll move on to the inclusionary housing review.
So I think, I'm not sure, Mike, you weren't feeling too good at the last meeting, and I sort of brought up with regards to inclusionary housing, some of the requirements for the smaller projects, and I'm not sure if you have an email. I put forward kind of what I thought might make it a little bit more attractive to get people to actually build smaller projects and make them a little bit more, make them a little bit better. Builder developers like myself to want to look at.
More
Trying to be
incentive,
smarter.
right? Yeah.
So I put together some stuff again. Bear with my grammar, and I just wondering if anybody had any thoughts on some of what I put together and trying to move that along, and maybe having a planning board discuss it or take it on, or whatever would be the next step to maybe having more discussion on what I put together. Just anybody?
Well, I mean, I think it makes sense from the trust standpoint, right? But it's really not in our hands.
Well, I think it's something we could suggest. Greg, what
Right.
would be the process to get further discussion, say with the planning board, if that would be? the
Yeah,
next-
so I think it would probably make sense. I mean, I think you should all think about that. I mean, there's a little bit, Chris has provided a perspective and the discussion and the development of the amendments of the inclusionary ordinance are also, from the perspective of also trying to ensure that you can actually do something with the funding that's provided. The old ordinance, basically provided if there was an in lieu option, it was really just the delta between market rate and affordable, which was not a huge number. And so on the one hand, the intention of the fairly high number of the in lieu payment is to try to get the units built. I mean, that's the title of the ordinance is inclusionary requirement. We want
Yeah.
units included and built. I hate to use the word pain, but it is certainly a little painful in terms of how high the price tag is. But depending upon, the type of units that are being marketed, that are, say, being marketed for $1 million plus, then it's a reasonable, fee to be paid. Again, if there's a project out there that's in a more little a affordable price range, which is, we haven't really seen a lot of those happening.
And you
I
won't.
can understand the the gradation of having a lesser payment based on the number of units. This was raised when we discussed this with the planning board. They took the position that they did. So I think it might make sense if the trust also thinks, there's something, to be discussed further in terms of also trying to have more funds available to leverage and maybe generate more units. Then again, these are projects that would generate one at a time. That, and in that case wants to be made to the planning board. I think they will probably be meeting as kind of a debrief after taking a few on the chin this past 6 months with some of the proposed zoning amendments, back in a subcommittee focused on housing, probably either later in August or the beginning of September. So I think if you think that that's something that your commitment or vote to say, Chris, run with this or not. I mean, Chris can certainly do that as well to kind of just bring that to their attention and have them think about that. And again, that would probably be, I would guess, late August, maybe early September.
Got it. So does the board have any thoughts on it and what we should try to do? Anybody? Somebody?
I think it's another great source of funding, albeit it may be slightly inconsistent. Why limit ourselves in taking money when
Well,
we can?
yeah, but I think, I just don't think
So
the units,
I'm in favor of it.
yeah. I think that 100% of zero is still zero. So I think that we've got to have some sort of a sliding scale. When people are looking at stuff, you can't have 6 units, potentially 21% of your profits go, and then with 9 units, only 12. So I think I think you want to, and I think the other thing, talking to some of my builder developer friends, is they'd rather have the in lieu payment and keep whatever they're producing, making, putting out there, that they'd rather have the ability to have the units, be able to have say the 6 or 7 units is to not have an affordable one. I think they won't tell you that, but they'll, but I think being able to put the amount of money into something, again, that can be magnified with the Affordable Housing Trust, and also, having using the local numbers, they're able to, sort of in their initial budgets, be able to see, this is what we're paying, this is what we would pay based on what the assessors say we would owe, with a project coming online next year. This is what we would, they can allocate that money amount, as part of their initial sort of feasibility look at a project. And I think that helps.
Now, Chris,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
This is kind of foreign to me.
Yeah.
Is there a dollar amount where developers going to go, like, forget that, I'm just not going to do it? Is it 150 grand? Is it 300 grand? Or
No, I
what
think
is
they'll do,
that payment to us in your experience?
So I'm really just strictly talking not about rental, but more about for sale projects. I don't think there's a number. There's not a number that there's a breaking, that there's not a number specifically. It would probably be based on the risk of a project and looking forward and going and saying, hey, if I had to look at a project and put up $270,000, and I knew that right away, and I'm looking at a project on the back shore that's going to generate 1.8 or 1 point, whatever it is per unit. I think it's just a question of, the risk versus what the potential profit is. And I think that with the smaller projects, going up at sort of 20% of a whole, it just becomes a lot, it's more the size, the scope, the risk, and everything involved, not just the dollar amount. And I think that even the last 3 years, just all the units that are coming out with these multi-family projects are just north of $1 million. I'm just crazy. I mean, the projects on Thatcher Road, on the back shore, on Niles Beach. I mean, they're just getting bigger and bigger. And I even thought, I mentioned it, and my friends will kill me, but even if you go down to 5 units versus 6, I think that I think that's something to discuss as well, because otherwise you get people with 3 lots and they go, well, I'm going to do 2 duplexes, and I'm going to put a single. I'm not going to put a duplex on the last lot. So I think at least discussion I think we should have is looking at even potentially 5 units. I mean, the market is just going out of control with any multifamilies that are going out there. I don't think there are any that are being built that the units are selling for under 600,000 or 800,000. I think that are,
Now, Chris, when you,
Yep.
like a perfect example is that the development in right next to Niles is,
Yeah,
I don't know how many houses they put up there, but they're clearly several townhouse buildings, right?
Yeah, there's
Or
three.
structures. There's,
There's
Yeah.
3
okay, so
two-family.
there's three.
Yeah.
All right, so there's, so in my mind, when we say 5 to 6 or 6 to 9 units, I'm thinking of one structure with 6 to 9 units in it.
but it carries
So
both.
it's not that.
It's
Could be a
both.
subdivision.
Okay, so it can be one or the other.
It can be
Okay,
lots that
okay.
exist next to each other, or it can be, like a Form A, a couple lots, 2 to 3 together, or it can be a multifamily on one lot.
Okay, thank you. That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Chris,
I appreciate the clarification.
Chris, is there a sliding scale system in other towns that you researched?
No, no, I didn't look at, I didn't look with that specific. That was more, when I got in it at the 11th hour, when they started doing the inclusionary housing last February,
Yeah.
a year ago, February. And I just had to, I got together with the builder developer friends, some of which I like and some which I don't. And we discussed it and sort of just, my own thoughts were more locally than looking at other towns and how they would do their thing, just from, what I've seen over the last 30 years in projects that don't happen. And just trying to encourage people to, look at things a little bit different, because again, I think we had one zoning, I'm not sure if it was clusters or that we had on the books, and we had one, if you don't use something, it's not any good. And a lot of, so I think making something that's, that someone initially can look at and again, this is just local. The answer to your question, I just looked locally for that conclusion. That's all. Sorry about all the talking.
No, that's all right.
So Mike, just to give you a perspective, there is no magic number. There's lots of different formulas. There's lots of different indices that people use to reference to come up with a number rather than just creating something static, because obviously if you create it static, you want to change it, you have to go back to your ordinance.
Yeah.
That's why this was tied to actual real estate transactions to give you a sense of what's happening in the market. And it was done over a 3-year period to take out any kind of, dip or any rapid increase to kind of stabilize it so that people can plan their projects, with some sense of, stability and what that number might be. But the idea of not, like Chris points out, having one unit have to be provided for projects between 6 and 9, obviously that has a different impact on a 6-unit project than it does a 9.
Sure.
And before Chris raised it, it's something that I raised too, in terms of, trying to dial this in so that it's, that it makes sense. I think at the time of the ordinance amendment, seeing, where the market is, the board said, you know what, if we keep it high enough, then they're going to have to build it. So that's kind of the balance of the discussion of what prohibits somebody from moving forward versus what ensures that units are being built rather than sub-threshold projects coming in or that type of thing. So it's a complicated issue. I think it's better than it was because it wasn't workable in the old ordinance, but we kind of have to see how it plays out.
Well, yeah, and I'll give you sort of an example, and he said it was okay to discuss it with Jay McNiff down at the Forge, is that I believe with the old ordinance, he was at the threshold of making one of his, I think his 8th one would have had to have been affordable. Is that right, Greg? Or the 9th
Yes.
one? So the 8th one would have had to have been affordable. And the way the market was with him, at the end, he had the choice of going with 8 or going with 7. And if he went with 8, he would have had to build his structures and actually take money out of his pocket instead of, I think what he did do is he ended up selling what would have been his last lot to the neighbor. Instead of putting a unit, he sold it as an extra piece of land or something thereabouts. And he
No,
didn't-
actually, I think he actually deed restricted one of the lots out not to be constructed.
Is that, but he
Yeah.
sold it to one of the neighbors though, right? Is that,
No, there was actually a separate one. Yeah, I think it may have just become green space next to one of the lots.
well, he decided, in the big picture, he decided not to build because he would have had to take money out of his pocket to build it, to turn it over. So he stayed under the threshold. So that's what I think the fear is, that no one's gonna do 6 units if they're just not gonna do 6 units.
Well, I think that
And it's not
that's a
gonna
little
drive,
bit
and it's not gonna
it's a
drive them up to the 9. It's
complicated
gonna-
because that was under the old ordinance and the threshold there was 8 units and there wasn't an option for an in lieu payment. So that may have been a different scenario if he had the
Yeah.
option to make an in lieu payment because of
Correct.
the price tag of the units.
Yes, correct. And I think that, I just think even other units of Pat Titus's, he might have ended up, doing just 5 units versus the 6. So I just think it's worth discussing and bringing in front of the planning board again, and whatever we can do to make those steps, I think might be a good idea when Greg thinks it's appropriate, that all the wounds are licked from last winter with the, with the neighbors.
Yeah. Any other comments on inclusionary housing review? I think I'm in agreement that I'd like to see this discussion further.
Should I put
agree.
together
I would
something?
like to,
I'd
Go ahead,
like
Chris,
to
I'm
work
sorry.
with somebody on, I'd like to work with somebody on the board to try to get something a little bit neater put forward to the planning board. I'm not sure anybody's, there's someone,
What do you mean, Chris?
I just think writing it a little clearer, a little bit, even though I have spell check, I still have trouble, spelling things.
If you just need editing help, Chris, I can, I can help with that.
Excellent. Thank
I'm
you.
not like, on the content, I'd be a little lost.
Well, no, I'd like to work together with you to try to get something forwarded to the planning board. Is that what we'd try to do, Greg?
Yeah, I think you certainly could do that.
Okay.
Terrific.
And we'll wait towards the end of, you think, put something out, run it by this committee in the August meeting, and then get it out soon after that? You think that'd be good timing?
Yeah, I
Greg?
think that would be good timing.
Okay. So Mary Jo, we'll work together and get,
Yeah.
Okay, super. Excellent.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you,
Okay.
Thanks,
MJ.
Chris.
No problem.
thank you
Okay.
both.
Oh, I hear the vacuum going in the background here. Any other business?
Apparently not.
Terrific. Well, I thank you, everyone, for the.
Okay, before you adjourn,
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
I think we should try to really nail down dates.
Okay.
And-
Yeah,
and-
good
and
idea.
Maybe it's also trying to create something a little bit more regular than setting it at the meeting date, so that we can. So the challenge is obviously the city calendar is absolutely peppered with meetings with boards. I look to Jamie's availability as well.
Yeah.
And I think in the past you guys have met on Mondays. That I think is typically a pretty good meeting, just provided you remember to post an agenda on the Thursday before. And I know MJ had mentioned that she had some conflicts
On the
with-
fourth Monday.
on the fourth Monday. So I don't know what your input's like, Jamie, on this, if there's a particular day that works for you as well, that we can try to set as, the X Monday of the month will be the Affordable Housing Trust.
That would be good.
Mondays are fine for me. It's just the third Tuesday of the month. So Tuesdays are trickier for me.
Maybe what about the last Monday?
Well, that's typically the fourth that MJ has a
Oh,
conflict.
yeah,
with.
yeah. I'm looking at like the next couple of months and there's
No, did we just say, what about the third Monday? Is that not good? Did someone say? Third Mondays?
I just have scattered Monday events for the summer. But none of them fall on the first Mondays.
Why don't we go for the third Monday?
The only conflict I would have is in September. Wait, no, actually the third Monday would work for me.
Third Monday works for me.
Yeah,
Me too.
excellent. Print.
Save.
That puts it at August 15th.
Yeah,
Yep,
Works for me.
Okay.
that's good with you, Jamie?
Yes, that works for me.
Okay, all right, so we'll see how long that works. We'll try to shoot for the third Monday, and with a start time of 5 PM works with everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, it's in the books. We're holding you to it. You get 3 tries and then we stop hosting.
Hey, some of us are kind of new at this, so we'll get with the program. We'll get with the program.
sure.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other business?
Move to
Nope.
adjourn.
We have a second?
Second,
All in
Yep,
favor?
second.
All right.
aye.
Aye and bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Jamie. Sorry
Have a
about
good
the
few weeks.
confusion last week.
Yeah, I'm sorry for being late. Nice to see you all. Bye-bye.
Good to see
Take
you.
care.
all.
Thank you, everyone.